Right now, this is our last chance to stockpile. In fact, I would run to the store and pick up some extra supplies right now because literally, and I mean it, time is short. In this video, will show that there's been a major escalation between Ukraine and Russia. And when I say that, a major escalation between NATO and Russia, and what that means for us as preppers, we have some serious bad times coming and we have to be ready. So let me show you what's happening because this is huge. It started off just recently. We can see in Politico, the White House finalizing plans to expand where Ukraine can hit inside Russia. The talks have been closely held among a small group of officials in the White House. The details of the plan are still coming together, but officials in Washington, London, and Kiev have in recent days discussed expanding the area inside Russia that Ukraine can hit with American and British-made weapons. And this is just the beginning because it's not simply just about weapons and hitting inside Russia, but literally this news came out that it's actually using our long-range missiles, American long-range missiles, deep inside Russia. And immediately Putin comes out and says he draws a new red line on long-range missiles. And in Moscow, he said this would view as the direct participation of NATO countries in the war in Ukraine. And another article from The Guardian, this is all over the news by the way, Putin lifting Ukraine missile restrictions would put NATO at war with Russia. So the United States is giving Ukraine the green light. Yes, use our long-range missiles against Russia. And Russia said, that's a line, that's a fine line, you cross that. And this is an absolute proof that NATO is at war with Russia. And if we go back a few months ago, this is April, the U.S. has quietly been shipping long-range ATACMS, that's the abbreviation for this, missiles to Ukraine. Back in April, the United States in recent weeks secretly shipped long-range missiles to Ukraine for its battle to fight off Russian invaders. It's talking about in Ukraine here. And at that time, Ukraine has used them twice. And these missiles were part of a $300 million military aid package for Ukraine. Of course, Biden approved that, sending tons of money and missiles to Ukraine. The White House National Security Advisor Sullivan, briefing reporters, confirmed that a significant number of these missiles had been sent to Ukraine and said that we will send more. And all of this was using these ATACMS missiles, these long-range missiles inside Ukraine against Russians, again, inside Ukraine. However, right now, I don't even say Biden. I don't even say the United States. I want to say basically the elites, all these countries joining together. There seems to be, Google this, by the way, a unanimous thing saying, you know what? We need to now take off the gloves and let the Ukrainians strike deep inside Russia using these ATACMS missiles, these missiles that we've been sending them for quite a while now. And by the way, the ATACMS are launched by what are called HIMARS. That's the system here. This is launching 6 independent missiles, but it can actually launch 1 ATACMS missile. These missiles have a range of 190 miles and travel at Mach 3. They're GPS guided. This is not one here, but it kind of looks like this. And literally can shoot the missile, and then the HIMARS can drive off somewhere else so it can't be attacked. And I want you to understand, obviously, you know this, that the United States has been sending tons and tons of arms to Ukraine. But most of those arms, if you didn't know, are mostly kind of like our older stuff, a little bit outdated. Not these ATACMS. These are top of the line, some of the best that we actually have in the military. But I want to stress again, this would put NATO literally at war with Russia. And here it is, this just came out. The stakes behind Ukraine's surprise attack inside Russian territory. Have you heard about this? We talked about attacks inside Russia from Ukraine, but it's funny how all this is happening with these ATACMS, and now suddenly there's an attack inside Russia, and you know what, media is not talking about this. Ukraine's surprise thrust into Russia, armored columns slicing through unprepared defenses, seizing towns and settlements. And I'll be the first to admit, the amount of advance into Russia is pretty small. However, during this offensive, Ukraine uses U.S.-supplied long-range ATACMS missiles for the first time in a counteroffensive against Russia. Their range is about 190 miles. You can shoot basically from D.C. all the way to New York City. And they're guided by GPS, carrying a 500-pound warhead. It would have a serious impact wherever it hits. And here's what the article is saying. Putin has warned that striking them would bring NATO and the U.S. directly into conflict with Russia. And General Milley said he's making a clear, unambiguous threat publicly against NATO, as NATO is attacking Russia. And ironically, at this time, the U.S. announces more aid for Ukraine at this critical moment in the war. And of course, Zelensky is crying, I need more, please. So according to Putin, the red line has been crossed. And according to this, Russia is now at war with NATO. NATO is at war with Russia. And the United States, of course, is not only involved, but probably, most likely, is pushing for this agenda right at the time of elections. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So here's the thing. Russia is very good at putting out a lot of information, a lot of disinformation, like, oh, we're going to do this if you do this, and they don't do anything. We're going to do this if you do this. One of the things I've talked about in the past and I want you to understand this concept, this is very important, that if you're going to try to use like nuclear weapons, for example, against Ukraine, the last thing you want to do is tell Ukrainians where the nuclear weapons are, or telling the world. And whenever you see Putin saying, look, we're moving nuclear forces in here and we're moving nuclear missiles here, that's always a publicity stunt. That's always what it is. It's simply just saber rattling, showing you what we have. Look what we have here, better back off. And I've always said that when you see these, don't worry about that. When that huge flotilla of Russian and a nuclear Russian submarine went to Cuba, don't worry about that. That's a show of force. It's the nuclear subs underneath the water off our coast there that you don't see have more of a concern. That's exactly what's happening here. Because up until now, Russia's always saying, you do this, look, we have nuclear missiles. You do this, here's our nuclear forces. And they've always made that blatantly clear until this action happened now. And this is the most important article. The Kremlin now changes its nature of nuclear saber rattling toward Western countries. The article talks about how Putin is beginning to recognize the diminishing effectiveness of nuclear threats among Western officials. And now he's crafting an ambiguous, more nuanced, limited information response to any forthcoming agreement from the West, allowing Ukrainian forces to use long-range weapons to strike targets in Russia. And if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know I've talked about numerous times that when they put it out there, Russia says, we're doing this and this and this. That's not the big part you need to worry about. It's when it's hidden, covert. And that's exactly what's happening now. This is the time to worry, because I truly believe, and put in the comments below if you think that's the way it's heading, I think that line has been crossed. And I believe this next step we're going to be seeing is going to be a major all-out offensive, possibly nuclear, maybe tactical. But I believe Putin is not bluffing in this situation. What do you think about that? Put in the comments below. And I think we're heading to now, these are literally the first major shots of World War III. The shots were taken a few years ago, but now it's literally taken it to the whole next level. We need to stockpile, we need to prep, we need to prepare, because time is short. And it's just a matter of time, because you know what? There are things happening this November. We need to actually make sure that we have everything in place as preppers, no matter who's fighting who. Because you know what? No matter who is fighting who, we're the ones who's going to pay for it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.